Good day, and welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Bridges. In each episode, I cover my experiences, both good and bad, of being a business builder, as well as my journey through the crazy world of entrepreneurship to reach my goal of earning $10 million a year. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Budding Entrepreneur Podcast. This is episode 151. Today is Friday, June the 7th, 2024. We had a great time last week, at least I did, kind of going back to some of the podcasts in the past, bringing them forward, pulling some of the ideas of the whole process that I've gone through from the beginning until now, and kind of wrapping that together and putting it as a nice little present for everybody to kind of understand how we got to where we are today. This being episode 151, we're going to go ahead and jump in, changing our format a little bit. I have for today's agenda our quote, and then our business strategies are going to be outsourcing and partnerships. We're going to keep this one kind of short, but you'll notice that the format is now video as well as audio. And I did this because I thought that it was important enough for us to take some of this whole piece that's kind of come together, and instead of breaking out images on Facebook only and people on the podcast don't actually get to see it, this way everyone gets to see pretty much the same thing. We're going to go to this newer format. It's going to be simple enough. As you can see, we're going to break everything down. I'm going to start off with the quotes. This is from a book that I started reading. I've been reading it in pieces over time, but it's a very good book. It's The New Law Business Manual by a woman named Ali Katz. And it's a play on words, and it's fun for her name. But she was talking about a coaching example she was going through. And the coach asked her in this first meeting, and this is when she didn't have a lot of money, and I think it was like $350 a month to get a coach way back when. Essentially, the person started asking her, when was the last time you had your hair done? When was the last time you got your makeup done? A pedicure, a manicure? And the author was pretty upset. She's like, man, what's this got to do with it? And the quote was this: until you are taking care of yourself, you're not going to love anything you do. And that's kind of true, because as we let ourselves kind of fail and fall on ourselves, the things that we might do and the things that we might achieve will be just given that same kind of short shrift of focus. And it's not necessarily a good thing that you want to have happen. But if you start taking care of yourself, you do things like going through Hard 75, and you go through and you take care of what you're doing, and you put the money and the time and the effort into what you are, then it becomes easier to appreciate and enjoy the things that are around you. So it's a great quote. I wanted to bring that as a new idea here. This is an interesting book for those who are in the legal field, and it's something that I'm going to be incorporating parts of into my own programs, my Law Practice Accelerator and my Family Law Practice Accelerator, are some of these same ideas, because I've had these for a long time. I've believed that as I went through working with attorneys, the way they were doing things was not as good as it could be. It's not as good as it should be. So I'm going to be bringing a lot of these ideas into my own programs, not to steal them from her, but to just fill in the information that I need so that I can reference all of this and have something. It's not just me talking about this. Now, we talked about this month's business strategies being outsourcing and partnerships. And I want to talk a little bit about these because I think they're a very important part of a business that's growing. There are times when you can't just hire. There are times when you are working alone and you really feel like you're being left in the dust, right? Things aren't getting done the way they should. You're probably overworking and underappreciated. You are, after all, if you're the owner of the company, you have the worst boss in the world. They're psychotic, they're bipolar, they're all these things, and they're usually driven by not a great situation you find yourself in. We all kind of know this if we're business owners. And as we become entrepreneurs, the pressures go up, the demands go up, and we find ourselves working more and more for a person we don't recognize and don't appreciate, which is ourselves. So outsourcing and partnerships give us a way to take some of that pressure off, take some of that communication with ourselves that we're doing, that we're missing out on important things, and put it all together back into our business, our practice, our you name it, and make it work a little bit better. These are both common things. Outsourcing has been around for a long time, partnerships probably even longer. There's evidence that the Greeks and even the Romans were heavily involved in partnerships. So it goes back just a few years, right? But I want to make sure that if you've been living under a rock, you understand what these are, what their benefits are, and kind of, what types of things that they are. And so let's start with outsourcing. So first off, what is it? Well, it's the practice of delegating certain business functions or processes to an outside service provider, maybe two, maybe even three. A lot of times you'll have a situation when you get into more requirements that you'll actually outsource it to two or three different people and take only the best of what there is. Now, as long as you're marking it up appropriately, that's not a problem. But, when you're using outside service providers, some are better than others. So it's always a good idea to keep your eye on either only the best of what you know, or do like that, divide it out into maybe two different outsourced partners. Now, if you've got too much on your plate, and how many of us don't have that, instead of juggling everything, you want to hire somebody specifically to handle it. But you don't necessarily want to hire that person. You want to hand off certain tasks, especially the ones that you don't like or don't do well. This is part of the buy back your time concept by Dan Martell. And you want to give these to experts who can do them better and faster, not just than you can, but that pretty much anyone can. Okay. So that's a key factor in there, is not just doing it better and faster alone, right? You want to buy back your time so that somebody else is doing the work and you don't have to keep your eye on it 24/7. There are three basic different types of outsourcing, and they're very different. Offshore outsourcing is where you delegate tasks to providers in faraway countries. Okay. This is the most commonly known one. A lot of things went to India. A lot of things went to China. A lot of things went to Nordic countries. And it just depended. And even South America and Africa, parts of this all went out. A lot of virtual assistants run out of the Philippines now. So this is something, we'll discuss that a little bit, but that's an example of an offshore outsourcing. Nearshore involves working with providers in neighboring countries. So getting it done with Canada, getting it done with Mexico is a very common thing. Maybe if you're in England, you get it done in France or Germany. I don't know how well that would work, but I mean, it's just an example for you for nearshore outsourcing. And then there's onshore outsourcing, where you keep it local, partnering with companies within your own country. Many times you're partnering with people in state and out of state. Maybe you're partnering with people on the West Coast. I do that all the time. I have consultants that I work with and that I have who are major parts of my of my practice. And one of them's in Florida, another one's in California, yet another one is in Montana. There's a couple of them in Oklahoma. And, just all over the country. And what that gives you the advantage of sometimes is time. If you're in California and you're outsourcing to somebody in, say, Indiana, and I did this, it was advantageous when my clients were also in California, is that I could have a team here in Indiana start working on it at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is 4 o'clock in the morning in California. So that had a real big advantage to get things done on off hours when the company wasn't open, and get it started before they began their day and wrap it up at a reasonable time here without interfering with what was going on there, and then still continue working. The people here in Indiana could continue working with clients in this general area here. That's a good example of onshoring. Now, each type has its own set of benefits and challenges, and we'll go more into that next week. But for now, just remember that choosing the right type of outsourcing depends on your specific needs and goals. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the third week this month of taking those goals, figuring out what they are, and then how to apply them to this process. Now let's talk about the benefits of outsourcing. First up, there's cost savings, right? I mean, if you're going to other parts of the country, if you're going to other parts of the world, you can significantly reduce your operational costs. If you think about it, hiring full-time staff means salaries, benefits, infrastructure expenses, lots of things that come right off the expense of your company. But outsourcing lets you pay only for the services you need, often at a fraction of the cost. That was one of the things that was nice about living in California and having people in Indiana. California is very expensive to deal with. Anybody you hire there, anybody you work with there, you're paying top dollar for. Whereas for the people that were here in Indiana, I could pay them not less, but I could actually pay them a really good wage and not have to go crazy like I would with somebody I was doing in California. Another benefit you get is access to specialized skills. Now, especially if you're doing offshoring and nearshoring, outsourcing gives you the advantage of tapping into the expertise of these external service providers who are masters at what they do. Now, that's the key. You've got to find those masters. Whether it's IT support, marketing, or customer service, these master providers bring a level of skill and experience that it might be hard to find or afford in-house. And finally, outsourcing allows you to focus on your core competencies, the things that you do well, and not have to worry about the things that you might not do as well. By handing off these non-core functions like payroll or tech support, you free up your resources and your energy to concentrate on what you do best. This focus can drive growth and innovation in your main areas of business, and you don't have to really worry about it or think about it. You simply have to measure it at the end. Now let's look at partnerships, because this is different from outsourcing. Partnerships are collaborative relationships between two or more businesses, organizations, entities, whatever you want to call them, and they're aimed at achieving mutual goals. It's like teaming up with another player in the game to reach a winning situation for both of you. I did partnerships in a kind of a strange way and still do. I would have my client and I would have a partner company. And I'd sit down with the client and the partner company, and all three of us would get together. And what would happen is I would introduce them, they would talk back and forth, decide whether they wanted to work together if it made sense. And then my role would be to take the requirements of the client, translate them, and put them in the words that the partner needs to know, the concepts they need to know, and vice versa. I could take the things that the partner was talking about at such a high level, break them down into simple concepts, and give them back to my client so they could understand easily without getting a lot of geek speak going on, right? That was a very good thing to use partnerships and be in partnerships. And I still do this. I usually these days, I work with, different types of partners. Some of them are simply affiliate programs. Very common. I do that with, I do it with Clio. I do it with TimeSolve, a few others. And I enjoy doing that, but I also have some companies that I work with as partners I work for them and they work for me. We have this back and forth. Using that, those are what we call joint ventures. Joint ventures are my favorite. They're involve creating essentially a new business entity, if you will, that both parties own and operate. So you work back and forth. This is a little different from a strategic alliance, but you might have a brand that you use that both of you share in. Both of you can kind of sell to your clients so that the other company doesn't have to get involved with your clients and learn all about them. And so joint ventures have a really nice capacity for creating new ideas. A lot of times joint ventures represent the podcasting community. We get on somebody else's podcast. I do this every once in a while. I'm looking to bring some more people into my podcast, and I give them a copy of the podcast as I've done it, and then they put it onto their website or their podcast, and vice versa. Several people that I know do that as well. They'll get involved in an interview with somebody else, and then they'll put it on their own, plus that person will put it on their own, and now you get twice the exposure for one time of work. Very, very advantageous. Another type is a strategic alliance. Now, this is collaborating on specific projects or initiatives without forming a new entity. And when I say entity, I don't just mean a company. Again, it could be like a brand. It could be a name, a program name that neither company, maybe one owns, neither company truly can say it's 100% mine. But the owner is essentially leasing the rights to it to somebody else, and then they work together. And finally, there's co-branding agreements. And you might hear this from certain vendors. You'll hear it as MDF, marketing dollar funds. And this is where two brands join forces to market a product or a service together. And you'll see this a lot when podcasts occur, different types of programs are out there, workshops are going on. You have a person who's giving the workshop and then a company who is actually putting all the money in to pay for the workshop. And both brands are on all of the documentation, all of the flyers, all the images, pictures, everything is all together. And they work together as a cohesive group. Sometimes the company will be the source to give the information, and sometimes the person on the other side that's co-branding with the vendor or whatever is going to be kind of running things and interviewing for subject matter experts. So a lot of things depend on what you're going to do with this and how you're going to do it. So strategic alliances are the most common. Joint ventures are my favorite. And then co-branding is the one that a lot of people do. And if you suddenly realize what it is, you're like, oh, that's just co-branding, right? And again, each one offers unique benefits and can be tailored to your business needs. Again, we'll talk about that next week. Now let's look at partnerships, right? Why should you form a partnership? Well, let's break down some of the key benefits. First, partnerships give you access to resources and capability that might otherwise be out of reach for you. either for cost or outreach. Maybe somebody else has a better reach than you do, and you can't get it on your own, but you can borrow part of theirs, right? And by teaming up with another organization or another person, you can leverage their strengths, whether it's their technology, expertise, market reach, you name it. This collaboration can significantly enhance your competitiveness and help you achieve goals that might have been impossible to you in the past. And let's face it, when you start getting that kind of outreach that somebody else has and you have access to their target market, suddenly that target market might reach into you and now want to have access to you. And so you get the benefit of gaining a new prospect, a new client, without having to go out and market to that person other than just doing something one time. Second, and this is probably a really good thing to think about, partnerships can lead to innovative solutions, especially if you're doing joint ventures. When you collaborate with another organization or person, company, practice, whatever you call it, you bring together diverse perspectives and ideas. You have access to them, and you can use them, you can deliver them in ways you might not have been able to do on your own. And this blend of creativity and knowledge can give you an innovative solution to complex problems, things that on your own you wouldn't be able to do. But it helps you stay ahead of the curve and adapt to market changes more effectively. This is so common in the world of technology. Okay. And third, partnerships often provide expanded market reach. By partnering with a business that has a strong presence in a market where you're looking to grow, you can tap into their established customer base and reputation. That's what we were just talking about. And you can accelerate your market entry and growth, giving you a significant competitive advantage over your direct competition. Very important, very, very key to how all of this works. Okay? So that's going to be the episode today. Like I said, we're going to keep it kind of short. Quick overview, we did our quote, we did our business strategies on outsourcing and partnerships, and we broke this down into types and benefits. Next week, we'll go deeper into how this all works, start digging into some of the types and pieces a little more carefully. But for now, I want to wish you the best in your health, your wealth, your business, your family, everything about you. Take care and have a great week. We'll see you back next week for Outsourcing and Partnerships Part 2.